The sky overhead was a deepening canvas, transitioning from the fiery farewell of the sun to the profound quietude of approaching night. I leaned back in the familiar contours of my old wooden chair, its worn arms comforting beneath my hands, and my gaze, unburdened by the day's tasks, drifted upward. Scattered points of light, the vanguard of the coming constellations, began to pierce the twilight, each one a testament to distant, unhurried brilliance. Another day had unwound its threads, each moment woven into the intricate, often chaotic tapestry of my online journey. And as the world outside settled into a hushed stillness, a truth, well-worn but ever deepening, began to surface in the quiet spaces of my mind. The journey to an awesome online life is inherently messy. Imperfections, mistakes, and the often awkward learning curves are not obstacles to be avoided, but integral, indispensable parts of growth itself. They are the authentic curves in the path without which the destination would lose its meaning. There was a time, not so long ago, when my vision of online success was remarkably pristine. It was a linear progression, a well-defined ascent devoid of missteps. I imagined content flowing seamlessly, ideas manifesting flawlessly, and growth occurring with the precision of a perfectly calibrated machine. The prevailing hustle culture reinforced this ideal, presenting a polished facade where only the triumphs were showcased, and every setback was either omitted or spun into a clean, digestible lesson learned that erased the actual grit and frustration of the moment. I believed that true competence meant never stumbling, that mastery implied effortless execution. My internal monologue then was a constant self-critique, a relentless pursuit of an elusive perfection. Every minor glitch, every awkward phrasing, every video that didn't immediately soar felt like a personal failure, a mark against my perceived capability. I poured immense energy into smoothing out every perceived wrinkle, agonizing over details that, in hindsight, were entirely invisible to my audience. The quest for flawless delivery often paralyzed me, leading to delays, missed opportunities, and an immense drain on my creative energy. The joy of creating was often overshadowed by the fear of being anything less than perfect. The universe, in its gentle, persistent way, tends to dismantle such rigid illusions. For me, the dismantling wasn't a sudden, dramatic revelation, but a gradual, inescapable accumulation of minor imperfections, awkward transitions, and the simple, undeniable reality of human fallibility. It became impossible to maintain the illusion of seamless perfection when facing the sheer volume of daily decisions, the constant learning of new software, or the inevitable technical glitches. The sheer impossibility of achieving flawless execution, day in and day out, began to wear down my resistance. I started to see that every single online creator, regardless of their perceived success, had a backstory of fumbled attempts and unglamorous learning. This realization, born from the quiet observation of my own persistent human nature, slowly opened my mind to a different truth. The messiness wasn't a flaw in the journey, it was the journey. This acceptance, once a daunting prospect, slowly transformed into a liberating philosophy. I began to approach my work with a newfound leniency, allowing for the natural untidiness of creation and growth. This acceptance manifested in tangible ways. Consider the very act of planning. My earlier self envisioned flawless blueprints. Now I understand that initial plans are merely starting points, fluid sketches that invite iteration and adaptation. The messiness of a crossed-out idea, a revised strategy, or a complete pivot in direction is not a sign of weakness, but of responsiveness and growth. My notebooks are now filled with scrawled thoughts, arrows pointing everywhere, ideas colliding and reforming. This chaotic visual accurately reflects the dynamic nature of building online, where foresight is valuable, but flexibility is essential. The value lies not in a perfect plan, but in the iterative process of planning and adapting. Then there is the persistent, humbling process of learning. Acquiring new skills for online success is rarely graceful. It involves awkward fumbling with unfamiliar software interfaces, the frustrating repetition of a particular technique, and the inevitable moments of feeling utterly incompetent. I recall the early attempts at editing my own videos, the jump cuts that were too jarring, the audio that fluctuated wildly, the graphics that looked amateurish. These were not moments of flawless execution. They were clumsy, often embarrassing attempts. But each awkward step was a necessary part of the climb, embracing the ugly early stages of a new skill, giving myself permission to be a beginner, allowed me to push through the initial discomfort and gradually build proficiency. The learning curve is inherently messy, a winding path of trial and error, not a straight, smooth escalator. And, of course, the mistakes. These are the most direct, often most painful expressions of imperfection. I remember launching a campaign with a faulty link, spending hours troubleshooting a piece of code that had a tiny, illogical error, or creating content that simply didn't resonate with the audience. In the past, such mistakes would send me spiraling into self-doubt. Now, I see them as invaluable data points, highly effective, though sometimes expensive, teachers. Each failure carries within it a precise, actionable lesson that flawless execution would never provide. It's in analyzing why something went wrong, not in shaming myself for it, that true insight emerges, refining my process, clarifying my understanding, and ultimately making future efforts stronger. These aren't detours. They're integral components of the fastest path to genuine expertise. This acceptance of the messy, iterative nature of online creation fundamentally reshaped my awesome way of building success. It infused the journey with a deep sense of realism and, paradoxically, a profound calm. The pressure to always be on or flawlessly execute diminished, replaced by a liberating understanding that authenticity, progress, and learning were more valuable than a polished but ultimately unsustainable facade. It made the journey more sustainable, reducing the crushing weight of unrealistic expectations. It fostered a deeper, more genuine connection with my audience, especially on exploring Jelmer's world. When I share a mistake, a moment of confusion, or the less than perfect reality behind a polished outcome, I find that resonance amplifies. People connect not just with aspirational success, but with shared human experience. The struggles, the learning, the sheer grit of showing up even when things aren't perfect. This vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a bridge. Looking up at the night sky now, the stars, each burning with its own unique intensity, didn't appear as flawless, distant points of light anymore. I saw them as part of a grand cosmic tapestry, woven with cosmic dust, and the occasional burst of a supernova that was, in its own way, a messy, beautiful act of creation and destruction, leading to new forms. My own journey, with its visible triumphs and its vast, often hidden landscape of imperfections and learning curves, felt like a miniature reflection of that grand design. The awesome life I was building wasn't a sterile, perfectly aligned structure, but a vibrant, evolving ecosystem, resilient precisely because it embraced the chaotic beauty of growth. The future, like the distant galaxies, stretched out, still largely unknown, an intricate dance yet to unfold. But I knew with a quiet certainty that the most meaningful progress would continue to emerge from embracing the authentic curves, the unexpected turns, and the inevitable messiness of the path. The real art, I realized, was not in perfecting the journey, but in dancing through its beautiful, imperfect flow.